Well, I think Raisi's death, which still has not been given an official explanation by the government of Iran, which I find very interesting, has certainly, I think, begun a premature succession crisis, since he was obviously a potential third supreme leader for Iran. And with his death, that just leaves Muqtada Khamenei as somebody who aspires to the job, but I don't think is acceptable, maybe not even to his own father. So people understand that the Ayatollah Khamenei is aging, he's ailing, it's just a matter of time. And I think this puts Iran in a very vulnerable position. This is a kind of circumstance where a very contested succession could endanger the stability of the regime. And that's what the Biden administration should be focusing on with opponents of the regime, to help increase the pressure. Instead, Biden has missed one opportunity after another to put pressure on Iran, most recently after Iran launched 320 drones and missiles at Israel some weeks ago. So I think Biden doesn't get the big picture of the threat that Iran poses to everybody in the region. Well, Iran is the world's preeminent state sponsor of terrorism. We see it all around: the Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Shia militia groups in Iraq and Syria, not to mention being an aspiring nuclear power, which would threaten everybody around the region and around the world. This is the price that Iran needs to pay, is to be put back under effective sanctions, not to be able to sell its oil to China and elsewhere in the world, not to have the revenues to pay for its nuclear weapons program and its support for terrorism. And that could include, as at least Israel has now done, military force against Iran when its proxies, like the Houthis, do something like interfere with freedom of the seas, which they are continuing to do. As long as Iran doesn't pay a price, as long as it's just its proxies that are at risk, it will continue a behavior we all find unacceptable. Well, the dangerous repercussions are caused by Iran today. It's their terrorist proxy, Hamas, that attacked Israel in a totally barbaric fashion on October the 7th and has led to the conflict in Gaza ever since. It's the Houthis who have closed the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and in effect closed the Suez Canal for most of its traffic. That's a threat. Both of those are threats to international peace and security. The Hezbollah assaults on northern Israel have continued now for almost every day since October the 7th, and Americans have been put in jeopardy by the Shia militia in Iraq and Syria over 170 times since October the 7th. This is the threat that Iran has already launched, and to say we can't respond in self-defense, at least Israel's responding to Hamas in self-defense, means that Iran acts with impunity. So the threat to peace and security comes from Iran, and if it's self-defense that risks a larger war, people should ask the question, who's the initial cause? Who is morally to blame here? And the answer is Iran, which is engaged in unprovoked aggression against the rest of us. Well, the Ayatollah is engaged in very effective propagandizing, and I wish more of the Arab states in the region would explain to their populations how much of all this trouble, starting with Gaza, is caused by Iran, that this is not a Palestinian war against Israel, this is an Iranian war against Israel that could spread to friendly Arab countries in the region. It's not just Israel that Iran wants to dominate, they want hegemony over the entire Middle East. Well, I think we should take military steps against Houthi capabilities in Yemen. There are often Iranian ships in the southern part of the Red Sea that are helping with targeting. Those ships should be sunk. And if need be, we should take steps against the naval bases and facilities in Iran that are part of the Houthi networks, supplying them with drones and missiles. to make it clear that we find it unacceptable. You know, Egypt is under enormous pressure now because of the loss of Suez Canal revenues, very few ships going through. And Egypt's financial situation isn't great. So Iran is really indirectly waging economic war against the Egyptians. And that's not something that I think others in the region should allow to go unanswered. Well, I think there's enormous pressure in Israel to do so. You know, they've cleared roughly 5 kilometers of territory all along the blue line in northern Israel of populations. People have moved out of their homes, their farms are untended, their businesses are not being kept up because it's not safe to be there. And Hezbollah has done this on a regular basis. I don't think Israel's going to put up with it forever, that's for sure. And, you know, Hezbollah has expanded its field of activity into Syria. It's a major prop for the Assad regime, which might not be able to hold on to power but for Iran's support directly and indirectly through Hezbollah. Well, the Ring of Fire is a term that the Quds Force itself uses for their efforts to unite terrorist groups in Iraq, for example, to form a united Shia militia comprising all the different elements that have been set up, like they created Hezbollah in Lebanon following the revolution of 1979, and then to turn these groups and their own military capability first against Israel, which they call the little Satan, but indirectly against the United States, since we're the great Satan. But all those capabilities, including Iran's nuclear efforts and its conventional military, can form a ring of fire around the Arabian Peninsula too. So these same capabilities, I think, threaten the Gulf Arab states, and that threat will manifest itself in due course. We've already seen the Houthis over a number of years firing drones and missiles against civilian airports and oil infrastructure in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. There's no reason that might not escalate if they can keep the Red Sea closed. Look, I don't trust the Iranian regime. They have violated the 2015 nuclear deal, which was deeply flawed from its inception. I think everybody in the region understands it. I don't think you can have lasting peace and security in the broader Middle East until there's a new regime in Tehran. I think that's just an unpleasant reality. People don't like to talk about it, but that's the fact. Well, I think Iran has an expansive definition of the Middle East, and Sudan's geographic position on the Red Sea obviously makes it attractive. But we've seen evidence of Iran interfering in civil conflicts in other North African countries as well, and really engaged in subversive activities and efforts to murder Iranian diaspora dissidents and others, including former U.S. government officials all around the world. This is a very dangerous regime. And, we can deal with it now before it gets nuclear weapons, or if we put it off much longer, the Iranian regime, when it gets nuclear weapons, will be that much difficult, that much more dangerous. Well, I think the UAE has a critical role for many reasons, both because it's been a close friend of the United States over the years. It's a very strong military power for its size in particular. Its oil production, its geographic location are critical, and its assessment of Iran and the threat that Iran poses is very important in shaping world opinions. I think Iran's objectives are fundamentally contrary to the legitimate national interest of all the GCC members, Israel, Jordan, Egypt, you name it. Iran has a view of its role in the Middle East that's utterly inconsistent with real independence and sovereignty for anybody else. Well, at this point, I don't think anybody can tell. Trump is ahead now, very narrowly. But a large group of Americans don't like either one of them. I include myself in that number. And so there are many developments yet. I don't think we will know, really, we may not know on election night who won. This could be very, very close. Well, I think most Americans don't want to vote for a convicted felon to be president. The many people argue he was treated unfairly. We'll see in the Court of Appeals in New York if they have an argument about selective prosecution that wins. But the fact is, most people think he did commit the conduct that he's accused of, and it's just not a good thing to have felons running for president. Right. I don't think either Trump or Biden are fit to be president. So I'm not going to vote for either one of them. I didn't vote for either one in 2020. I wrote in the name of Dick Cheney, the former vice president, in 2020. I'll do it again in 2024. It's a protest vote. I understand that either Trump or Biden will win, but I'm very worried about the consequences for different reasons, to be sure, but I'm very worried about the consequences in either case.